Welcome to this episode of Kennedy Saves the World. So, people are breaking up over political differences, and this is insane to me. So, really, your politics and how you see the world has a lot more to do with party or candidate. It has to do with how you view human nature. How do you see other people? If you generally think that people are pretty good and decent, you probably want to hook up with someone. And when I say hook up, I don't just mean like chicka wow wow. I mean, potentially get into a serious relationship with someone who sees people the same way. If you see that people are by and large good and people make better decisions themselves than some governing body could for them, then you should probably be with someone who feels the same. Because the biggest issues, like the biggest divide, that's where it stems from, how you view human nature as a whole. So if you think people are dumb and bad, then you should probably be with other people who think human beings are dumb and bad. And you probably shouldn't procreate because you sound very annoying. And I bet your children would be annoying. So I think it's okay if you guys shack up and don't have kids. Should there be a law that you don't have kids? No, because I'm one of those people where I tend to trust you with your own choices. But if you hate other people, then be with someone who also hates other people and has a dim view of human nature. That way you can nitpick each other to death and probably break up because you're both just so unbelievably annoying. But if you have a decent, optimistic view of human nature, that's one of the first things you should be looking for when you are out there looking for a mate. Don't necessarily check a box because someone is in your preferred party. If you're a Republican, it's not necessarily good news that someone is a Republican. Maybe they're just doing that because their dad was a Republican and they don't know what to do. Maybe they don't have a backbone or a set of values of their own. And that could be problematic because if they get into a friend group and become propagandized, that could change very quickly. And then they could have a dim view of you. So don't necessarily go by party, go by how people see other people and what they value. Because if that is the basis for your relationship, that is much more foundational than I'm voting for Kamala. Can you imagine the annoying people who are voting for a candidate they've only known who is a candidate for a few short months? And, maybe they've been dating for just a few short weeks and they find out the person they're attracted to, the person that they're having a good time with, the person who has creative ideas for dates, that they're going to vote for someone that this person doesn't like and they're going to end it over that. I mean, could you imagine a worst start for a long-term relationship or a marriage? Because if you are developing a political ick because of how someone is voting, then if you're so easy on the ick, then you will easily nitpick. And that is a recipe for disaster in a relationship. So it all starts with the big picture and then you narrow it down. Now, if you've been in a relationship for longer than 4 years and all of a sudden your partner's like, you know what? I think I'm going to vote for Trump. And you're a deep blue Biden Harris person. And now you've switched to Harris because you really don't want to think for yourself. You just want to vote for Democrats because you think somehow it makes you a better person. Then maybe the person is voting for Trump passive aggressively to get you to break up with them. That could also be because if you are just sheep and you're following the other sheep into the great abyss of statism, you probably are annoying in other aspects of your life, and the person you're with is probably too scared to tell you they don't like you and too scared to break up with you. So the only way they could do it is to disgust you by admitting they're voting for Trump.
Don't go anywhere. More Kennedy Saves the World right after this.
You know that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are not the only people running for office right now. And there are a lot of us who are independent, unaffiliated voters. And I can't say that I have ever been attracted to or dated someone because of their politics. And I can only think of one example where I only dated someone for a few weeks, and he revealed that he was a socialist, and that was kind of the final nail. There were some bright red flags in there, but that was the one he waved in my face. And there are a lot of things that I can overcome in terms of politics. And I have a lot of friends who are Democrats and super liberal. My parents have always been Democrats. They don't particularly like Trump. They were always confounded by my libertarianism from my 20s onward, and the more I got into it, the more I liked it. And it was one of those things where once I started talking about being a libertarian, my parents thought that it was a fad, like when I shaved my eyebrows and dyed my hair black. Hair's still pretty dark, eyebrows grew back, thank God. They don't always. But libertarianism was one of the things that stuck. But it has never been necessary for me to be with an unaffiliated voter who also happens to be a libertarian. But I cannot be with a commie. And I've told my children the same thing. I don't need you to be a libertarian. I don't need you to be a Republican. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I've never been a Democrat. I rarely vote Democrat. Like, you have to be a real black sheep in order for me to vote for you if you are a Democrat, because Democrats are by and large just much larger government people, and I disagree with them philosophically. Don't have anything against Democrats or Democrat candidates or politicians. I just don't like the way they spend my money. I do believe that taxation is theft, and it is a deeply philosophical issue. I don't have a problem with that. I don't care if my girls come home and they are Democrats. I told them, you cannot be commies. And if someone is a socialist, that's essentially the Coke Zero of communism. And it may seem like it's more delicious, but it makes you crave sugar. And when I say sugar, I mean other people's stuff that you are willing to confiscate and redistribute. So, yeah, I did draw the line at socialism, but these are things that, it's like, how do you see the world is one of the first questions you can ask someone. And I think it's a much safer question than, do you want to have kids? That will make a man's nutlet shrivel faster than raisins in a dehydrator. So don't start with that, but you can always start with, how do you see other people? In general, how do you view human nature? And then what do you think about taxation? Do you think that you're getting enough return on your investment in terms of what the government takes from you in taxes? And, then you can get a better gauge, and that's a good area to start from. But kicking someone out of your life and exiting a relationship because they're either Harris or Trump, I think is so stupid and childish. And if you've been in a longer relationship, you should have known that. And if it's a short-term relationship, these are short-term problems. Donald Trump, if he wins, it's only going to be for 4 years. Kamala Harris, if she wins, it's going to be the end of Gavin Newsom's political career. And, that in and of itself would be a gift. You always have to find the bright side, especially if you're always seeing the good in humanity. So the point is to find commonalities in your values and how you see your life unfolding. And if you are the kind of person who has to lecture other people at Starbucks about taking straws because they're going to kill sea turtles, you should also not be dating. You are just an annoying know-it-all. And I think the entire dating world might be better off without you. I know it may sound harsh, but there are times where we have to absolutely live in the real world. True story. This has been Kennedy Saves the World. Saving you, baby. I'm Kennedy.
Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcast Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app. Oh, go ahead and leave me a review while you're there. I'd love to hear what you have to say. You've been listening to Kennedy Saves the World on the Fox News Podcast Network.